Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Hawkeye Season 1, the rundown review. So, I have no idea if this show's ever going to get like a second season. So far, when it comes to these like MCU TV shows, they seem to be like standalone shows. So far, no like other seasons have really been announced. And so, like, I know that these characters are being set up because they're going to join the MCU movies and stuff. Like, it's been reported by this one YouTuber that the Young Avengers are coming to the MCU. Just don't necessarily know how yet. Is it going to be in movie form, TV form? Don't know yet. But there is significant evidence because many of the Young Avengers have already popped up in the MCU movies, and Kate has now popped up in her own television show. And so it's kind of like the seeds have been planted, it's just taking time to flourish. Like, take Scott Lang's daughter. She's a Young Avenger. The third actress has now been cast to play her, a much older actress and stuff. Which is ironic because the one in Endgame, Avengers Endgame, was an adult herself. So I don't know why they recast. I guess they wanted a different actress who could probably play the role better, probably. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going off topic. So, Hawkeye, Season 1. This was a fairly decent television show. Like, it was enjoyable. It was charming. It had, it was charming. But the problem for me is that it wasn't a slam dunk. It wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I was expecting all like this cool, like, action-packed series and like espionage and, like less humor and just more like hard grittiness and stuff. Something I've been wanting from the MCU for a very long time. And like I said, this was just like a pleasant, nice, charming show. It wasn't awesome. It has its flaws, but it's not terrible in no sense. It's just it needed more oomph. It needed more of a punch. It needed more kicking the balls, if you know what I'm saying. um, and so like, if I had to like get my overall rating of this, I would probably give it a strong C plus or B minus because it's not terrible, but it's not great at the same time. It is no Netflix Daredevil, let's put it like that, and it's no Netflix Punisher, let's put it like that. Like, I was expecting more of like Daredevil in this series, and in this series, it feels like more of a watered down, slap happy CW Arrowverse show. Like, that's what it really felt like. And quite honestly, would I prefer the CW Arrowverse over this show? I don't know, because the dialogue never got on my nerves in Hawkeye like it does in the Arrowverse. The Arrowverse, the moment they start talking about feelings and all this stuff, I like turn the channels and I never come back and stuff. So I'm so glad they didn't do this here. So basically, what does Hawkeye entail? Well, it's the 5th Disney Plus MCU series to come out. It came out just this year. I think, did it come out in December? Or did it come out in November? I think it came out in December. And it's very Christmas themed. So that was really cool and interesting to see. Like, as it comes out in December, might as well make a Christmas theme and stuff. And so the show was created by Jonathan Igler. Now, after looking him up and seeing the other shows he's like done, now I see why, I wasn't like a huge fan of this show. I don't like none of his other shows. Like, I've never been a fan of Mad Men, and and some of the other ones, and because I tried my hardest to watch Mad Men, only because of Christina Hendricks. But I could not, for the love of me, sit through that show and everything. And Masters of Sex, I was bored to tears. Like, the only reason I ever watched that show is because Nicole Tom, who voiced Supergirl in the Superman show, the cartoon back in the 90s, she was in the episode, so I wanted to see her in it. And she was barely in that episode. And I started watching the rest, and I'm just like, I'm just kind of bored. So I've never liked none of his shows. So that's probably why I'm not like a huge fan of this Hawkeye show. Yes, that toxic group of white men who just can't handle things like women empowerment and people in color and like LGBT and stuff like that. You know, they managed to ruin so many good like works of fiction on screen, whether it's movies or TV shows, just because they can't handle it not being centered around a white man. It is so sad and tragic because they're being replaced. It also stars Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton as Hawkeye. There, you got your white dude. Now, personally, I've never liked this version of Clint. I've never liked the MCU version of Hawkeye. I've always liked the animated ones better. However, this show started making me like this dude and even started liking Jeremy for the most part, and especially in the sixth episode. However, you know, he is going to get replaced at some point because let's face it, Clint is basically retired. He has been retired since the second Avengers movie. The only reason why he keeps coming back in the field is because, just like he said in the sixth episode, when those need him the most, he comes back. His friends, his family. When they're in danger, he puts on that costume and he gets his bow and he goes into action. But it's taking a toll on his body. It's taking a toll on his relationship with his family. He has barely been there to raise his kids. After they got snapped 5 years and everything, he went nuts and became Ronin. Then they came back and he's been a father and stuff. But like I said, every time something happens, he has to go back into the field. And you see the emotion it takes on his kids. So at some point, he's gonna retire fully. He can't keep doing it. I mean, the man's losing his hearing, for Christ's sake, you know what I'm saying? And that's because of all the explosions always around him. I know I'm gonna butcher this dude's name, Free. He is Kazi. He's one of the tracksuit mafia dudes. He is the one closest to Echo and everything. And he is the only person who survived the massacre that happened many years ago that made her an orphan, where the Kingpin raised her and stuff. Linda Cardellini, she comes back as Hawkeye's like wife, and we find out she used to be a former SHIELD agent. I don't like that twist because, okay, here's the reason why. When we found out he had a family in the second Avengers movie, I like to look at it as though he's this hero, he has this troubled past, he's killed a lot of people, and he's looking to be normal. He's looking to be like a regular person, a like husband, a father, you know what I'm saying? And I like the idea of him just randomly meeting some woman in the street and falling in love with her. But no, it turns out they used to work together for SHIELD. So that is kind of just like, you know what I'm saying? Also, it takes the fun out of it when his family's in danger and say and a bad person trying to kill his family. Well, if he's not there, it doesn't matter because his wife knows how to kick butt. So that takes it all out the fun of everything, you know? Vera Farmiga, I love this actress to death. She is great in Bates Motel. Go watch Bates Motel. I wish she could have been more like that, like Norma Bates, but sadly she wasn't. This was a crap role for her. Like, they could have picked any random person on the street to play this role and it would have been fine. That's just how lackluster and barely she is in this show. And you can tell by her performance. I've never seen her look so bored in my life in a TV show or movie. Like every time she delivered her line, she just looked like she was bored and didn't want to be there. Especially in the last episode, it's kind of like, "Geez, lady, where is your emotion at? Did they suck it out of you or something like that? Like, where is it?" Because I know for a fact she can act, and there's been a lot of times where Kate has done stuff where she should have raised her voice, but she didn't. She just dialed in a boring performance, and that's really sad and tragic. Florence Pugh, she plays, of course, Yelena, the Black Widow. I personally like Natasha better. This actress, I don't know. Like, she seems tougher than Natasha, but I do not like how comedic she is. I can't take her serious. It's just like it was more of that infused forced humor that the MCU loves to do. And it drove me nuts. Every scene she is in is a comedic scene. Every time she talks like she's a little girl. And the only time she gets serious is when she says she's gonna kill somebody. And I'm just like, how am I supposed to take this character seriously when Marvel wrote her to be like a 5-year-old girl? I love hot sauce. Like, I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. Tony Dalton, there was no point even bringing him in this show. There was no point in even bringing his character Jack into the show. His character is the swordsman from the comic book, enemy of like Clint, and he was like he was thrown in as a red herring. That's all he was. He was there as a decoy. He was there for the fall guy. He was like just a puppet of a character. Like, it was pointless having him on the show. So they actually got an actual deaf actress to play Echo, and that was awesome. Like, there's another like deaf actress in the MCU. She was in the Eternals movie. She is also on The Walking Dead. She is really good. Um, this character, I have mixed feelings about this character only because like she's supposed to be so tough and dangerous, and then she starts off that way, but then it's just like after that it's just like whatever. You know what I'm saying? Once she starts to find out the truth, she just becomes kind of boring and too kind-hearted and stuff. And she gets mad, but she doesn't get like mad enough. And the biggest twist surprise of them all is the man himself showed up in the show. No, not Becky Lynch. That's like, no, just not her. She might be the man in wrestling, but she didn't show up in this show. Thank God, because wrestlers can't act. I'm talking about the Kingpin Wilson Fisk himself. Vincent, and I have no idea how to pronounce this dude's last name, so I'm not even gonna try this. The dude did not miss a single beat from the Daredevil show. He acted exactly the way he did before. However, of course, because this is the MCU, I was worried they were gonna MCU him up, make him like stupid and silly. And they didn't do it like verbally or anything like that or action wise. They goofed him up with the clothes he wore. He looked stupid. He wore his typical white suit open up with a red Hawaiian shirt, and then I think he had like a hat to go with it, like he's in the Bahamas or Hawaii or something, or Florida. Like, why was he dressed that way? Especially in the winter. And I'm just like, why is he wearing a Hawaiian shirt? It was kind of interesting and cool to get some kind of confirmation on Mockingbird this season. So it's kind of like, I wish they would have did more with Clint's wife, because she's a shield agent, and like number 19 of course is the ranking number of that a Mockingbird. But then what happened to the one from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I wonder? Now, this is actually based off a very popular comic book. See, Kate Bishop herself, she first appeared in the Young Avengers. And she appeared back in 2005 in the Young Avengers. However, let's see, she was created by Alan Henberg and Jim Chong. And so, like, she's been around the comics for a very long time. But in this comic book that she's based off of, it came out from 2012 to 2015. And I think it was created by David Iger. And I think his name is Matt Fraction. And so, like, this is based solely off that comic book, and they adapted it pretty good. Like, there are scenes that come straight from the comic book. There are like let's see, the whole trick arrow thing when they're like making the trick arrows. The whole Lucky the dog thing came from the comic. The car chase is from the comic, although they switched the driver and the the archer, because in the show it was Clint that was driving and Kate shooting the arrows, and they were just reversed in the comic. Them talking about the boomerang arrow was from the comic and stuff. And there are like so many scenes from there that like it's insane, you know what I'm saying? However, like I said, this is an adaptation, so they changed a lot of stuff. But they did make it in the realm of what the MCU is, and they adapted it pretty good from the source material. Now, in the comic, Kate Bishop, her father was like, like not so much a good guy. And she witnessed him beat somebody up one day, which caused her to want to investigate. Her mom was estranged from him, and her mom was presumably dead, but then came back as a vampire. I'm so glad they didn't go that route in the show. And so, like, as she's investigating this and that, she ends up getting captured. She tried to escape, but then somebody rescued her. Hawkeye himself, Clint. And so that, like, made her just like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? And so that what kind of gave her the inspiration to want to be like him. However, as she started to grow up, she got sexual assaulted one day. And so that caused her to want to learn like combat skills and stuff. Eventually, she'll like join the Avengers and like stuff, or Young Avengers and stuff like that. And so like, but then she didn't meet like Hawkeye till like a very long time in the comics because he was presumably dead at that time. And then when they finally did meet, of course, he trained her better and stuff like that, which is what the comic book is like based off of, and and stuff like that. Now in the show, we get to see a really cool scene where basically Kate's like a little girl, her parents are like arguing and stuff like that. Their parents are going through like a really rough time of divorce. The Shantari like busts through, end up killing her dad. She sees Hawkeye outside, that gives her the inspiration to want to be like him. And then the dude dies, her dad. Now, we find out some stuff in the show about her father. We find out that he is not a very good man. He took out some loans from the Kingpin, and he owed them tons of money, which he did not pay back. So when he died, the Kingpin still wanted his money. So he forced his wife to do things for him to get like to pay off the debt. I don't mind that because like I said, he was shady in the comics and stuff like that. My only problem is when you do look at modern day television, the men are made to be monsters and the women are not. And so this clearly makes his dad be out like her dad to be like a bad person. And the mom, even though she does bad stuff, she still has a conscience. And the only reason why her mom even did any bad stuff whatsoever is to pay off the loan debt of her husband. So even though the mom did some bad stuff, it still makes her look kind of like a whole lot better than the father. You know what I'm saying? But in the comic, Kate is raised mainly by her dad because the mom is nowhere to be found because she's a vamp and everything. I can't believe it turned into a vampire. Sometimes comic books can go a little nutty. So in this like nice little montage of an intro, we find out what Kate has been up to since she's been growing up. She took up fencing, she took up martial arts, she took up gymnastics, and of course archery and everything. So she was very well trained from like a little kid into her adult age. When she grows up older, she becomes very angsty, she pulls pranks, and she gets in trouble to where she gets kind of like kicked out of school and stuff. So she's back home and she realizes something. Her mom remarried Jack. And so we see he has a huge sword collection, and Kate brings that up. It's to let us know he is from the comic books. He is like, the swordsman. Once again, I said it was just a throwaway role, and he was just there as a red herring. So when they're at an event, they're there with a bunch of like other rich people, and some of those people are there for like an auction, one of those black market kind. And so like a lot of stuff from the Avengers compound is being sold. This never made no sense to me. It's never explained how they got their hand on all the Avengers stuff that was in the compound that got blown up in Endgame. Cause you think, I know there was a lot of like deaths, so the Avengers had to like do their funerals and mourning and stuff. But you think they would have went back and cleaned up like a lot of that stuff and got their stuff back, because a lot of that stuff is very deadly, and you know what I'm saying, and people will get their hands on that. Or you think the people like the cleanup service will give it back to like the Avengers. So that was kind of like a weird plot right there, because it's kind of like, especially the whole Ronin suit, it didn't make no sense as to how it got in the rubble, because Hawkeye, he had his Ronin suit on when he fought like Thanos and his people. So it's kind of like, okay, they blew up the compound, he fought in his Ronin suit, and then after the huge battle, he decides to take it off and throw it in the rubble to pretend like what? Like Ronin died, but why would Ronin even be there, And so that didn't make no sense. Also, his sword now can like collapse in its like handle, and that was never shown in the movie. And of course, they only did that for the show so that he can sneak and steal it back and everything. So I can give him props for that. And so this, of course, is what leads her to meet Hawkeye and everything, because when he sees her running around in his Ronin suit, fighting off like the tracksuit mafia and stuff, he goes into action. Now, in the first episode, I had a problem with like the action. It was choreographed very strangely. It was just some weird camera movements. Also, I had a bit of a problem with the way Kate fought in the first episode. I know she's trained, I know she's skilled and all that stuff, but it's kind of like there's training and then it's actually being on the field and fighting and using that training. It's two completely different things. It's kind of hard to master sometimes. You have to get acquainted. And my problem was that she's like this 90-pound girl, and she was whooping on dudes that were like 200 pounds. And it's kind of like she was whooping them with ease, but then someone would get the upper hand, but not for that long. It was like she was a little too perfect in her first fight, with a group of people, not just one-on-one, but like a group of people. And a lot of people online called her a Mary Sue because of this, and I can kind of see why. It's kind of like with her training, therefore she knows how to fight, but I would have liked it better if she would have got like roughed up more, you know what I'm saying? Also, she knows martial arts, but her fighting in this show is the generic like hand-to-hand combat that you see in all the MCU stuff. So I would have appreciated more if she actually used more martial arts like maneuvers and went all Power Rangers or Avatar Last Airbender on them. Just to change things up, because the MCU is very formulaic. There's a formula to the MCU, which I will do another video later on. Actually, I don't know, that video might actually come out before this one, because I'm going to upload this one a little bit later, because I just uploaded the finale episode. So yeah. Because the problems I have with the MCU, they're just way too formulaic. And so she fought the same generic way everybody fights in the MCU, except for Shang-Chi. He's the only person who actually used straight up martial arts and stuff. I was expecting her to go all Power Ranger and stuff. Also, her acrobatic skills kind of got on my nerves in this show. They were too good and flawless. She is a rookie. I don't care how much training she's had in there. doing flips on like say like a balance beam is one thing, but doing flips on speeding cars and be able to dodge them is a completely other. So in the first episode, she was a little too perfect, and they need to slow her roll. But of course, this is what brings her into Clint. Um, and so he trains her, and they get along, and it's a nice bonding moment between those two. Like they get along so well, to the point where sometimes you kind of like, gee, she gets along with him better than probably his own kids, because you never see him hang out with his kids. And when they do hang out, they have a good time at first until they disappointed because he leaves and stuff. And it's almost like she is part of the family, and that is like his daughter. Now, in the comic books, she has a sister named Susan, or Susie, or something like that. Oh, I can't remember her name. She has a sister. Her sister's older. They left her sister completely out of the show. So that was kind of good, because I didn't want to see like another family member barely get anything to do or say. You know what I'm saying? And of course, when she hangs out with Clint and helps him out, she barely brings up the whole Armand murder thing. But of course, this leads her to the tracksuit mafia, and what leads her to Echo. And Echo is pissed because she's looking for Ronan to kill. And it just so happens to be Clint, but she doesn't know that. So that whole coincidence kind of like happened a little too quickly. And the only reason why it happened quickly is because this is only 6 episodes. This show should have been longer. It suffers a lot from like only being 6 episodes, because there's a lot of characters in here, and some of them don't even get their due, and some of them are just like red herrings and stuff. My favorite episodes are probably 3 and 6. 3 is okay, but 6 is like the main one I love to death. Now, some things I really liked in this was like, oh, I forgot to mention. So of course, all this tracksuit mafia thing and vigilante stuff, it gets her mom involved, and her mom gets Yelena involved. So then, of course, another coincidence, she wants to kill Clint because she thinks he killed Natasha and stuff. And then all this brings the Kingpin involved. And so everything happens in a nice little bow, wrapped up in everything, but it happens so quickly and so fast because it's only 6 episodes. Now, things I like. I like the action when there was action. There wasn't that much action. It was very brief and stuff, but whenever they did have it, it was cool. The first best action they had was in episode 3 with all the trick arrows. I gotta say, it is a shame that he did not have all his trick arrows in the Avenger movies. The only arrows he had was just regular arrows that can kill people and explosive arrows. And also that one Pym particle one, which I didn't even know that was that. I just assumed that it was just Ant-Man making himself bigger. And also that flash drive arrow. But this dude has a litany of like trick arrows, and they gave an excuse as to why he doesn't use them in the movies, and that's because like a lot of them got confiscated by like the police, and he just doesn't make them no more and stuff. So that's like a reason why we never saw him use them in the MCU movies. And I gotta say, man, the trick arrows are one of the best parts of this show. Like, it was just so hilarious. And that's kind of what I always wanted to see in Arrow. But you never really saw a trick arrow in Arrow. And then when you did, it came out of nowhere. And it felt out of place because of how dark and gritty that show was. And so, like, that's something both Green Arrow and Hawkeye are known for in the comics. They're trick arrows. Like, it's half the fun of, like, whatever you're reading or watching, you know? So I was so glad they brought that in. And like I said, the hand-to-hand combat was just, like, so cool. But it was so brief and everything. I wish it would have had more action and more hard-hitting action, and I wish everybody would have used a different type of fighting style. But it seems like on this show, everybody was trained to do only one style of fighting and one style of fighting at all. Certain things I didn't like was like, there were so many different storylines going on in this show. And I felt like they should have only focused on like one at a time and had the other ones for like another show. I felt like this thing should have just focused on Kate, her mom, Jack, Armand and then Hawkeye. The whole Armand murder thing pretty much got swept under the rug in the entire series. It's like he died in the first episode, and then after that, he's not brought back up until like the third or fourth, and then they kind of mention him again in the other episode, but very briefly. And it's just kind of like, why couldn't that been the focus of this series? It could have been more like a vigilante thing. And they could have had Jack actually be the prominent villain who killed his uncle, or they could have did a twist like they actually did in the show, and it could have been Kate's mom, and she could have had a legit reason as to why she wanted to kill Armand and everything. And then that could have caused Jack to want to kill Eleanor, which is Kate's mom. So that would have been a better setup. It would have been a more polished season if they just would have focused on just one aspect of the story and one only. But this show went into many different routes. They went into the whole Armand murder thing. They went into why the Tracksuit Mafia and Echo want to kill Ronan. They went into why Yelena wanted to kill like Hawkeye and stuff. And then let's see what else. Then of course you had like the whole Kate and Clint like family dynamic thing, and his actual real family not seeing him. So you had all these different plot threads, and they just all got smushed and combined into one another in a very, very convenient way. You know what I'm saying? Now, one problem I did have is when Kate was kinda able to hold her own against Yelena. There is no way. Now, I know she was going easy on her, but there's no way Kate would have been able to like one up her as much as she did. Like that was like, she's a skilled like Black Widow assassin, you know? However, I was so happy to see that Kate wasn't able to beat the Kingpin one-on-one with her fist, because she's not on his level yet. She's not Spider-Man, Daredevil, or none of them. Like, there's no way she would have been able to take him on fist on, but I do like how brave she was to try. And of course, the only way she could beat him is to outsmart him with the trick arrows and that little flick of the coin trick that she learned from Clint. And it was so cool how she took off his like cufflink and used that as the trigger, the like trick arrow and stuff. However, it was kind of weird after he talked, like he literally hit her and she went at least 7-10 feet. So it's kind of like, how was she able to get up from that, you know? I would have loved to see like another Hawkeye series where it just focuses on more him and his family, just him by himself and without Kate this time, and how it really affects his family when he leaves. You saw the emotion on his kid's face every time they found out Dad's not going to be home and he's not coming home. And so like that would have been some really good like drama, some depth, some character development. And then you could have thrown Kate in the mix, be all like, oh, you're the reason why like my dad is never here and he spends all his time with you. He acts like he likes you better than me. That would have been great. That would have been some great drama if this show was longer. Then what's really weird is that you see this emotion on their face because he's never there. But then when they actually meet Kate in the last episode, everything's cool. They're happy, they're smiling, they're giving her hugs, they love her to death. And I'm all like, why do they love her for? They never met her. And she basically took their dad away, you know? If it would have been the real life, that would have never happened. They would have been pissed at her. Now, if I was doing this show, I would have had the Tracksuit Mafia people show up in the second season with the whole Echo thing. See, the first season, I would have had the whole Armand, Eleanor, and Jack thing. The second season, I would have the Tracksuit Mafia people and Echo wanting to kill Clint for the whole Ronan thing. Then in the third season, I will have the whole Yelena thing wanting to kill Clint, and then her bonding with Kate. That would have been so much better of a polished series instead of rushing everything. And I don't like when shows are rushed, because then it just, because when things are rushed and things aren't exactly playing out the way you want them to, then you start to nitpick. And then you start to see the flaws in something that you like, which is what I'm doing now. I'm seeing the flaws in something that I don't love, I just like and enjoy and stuff. I really hated the misdirection with the whole Jack thing. He should have been the villain. Even though he's a lackluster villain, he's a D-list villain. But if you're gonna bring him in the show, use his behind. Um, Jack was another dumb character. It's like you knew something was shady with him, but then oops, he's a red herring, and then so he gets framed for like the murder of his uncle. But then he gets out of prison, and when he gets out of prison, he's not mad for being framed or set up. He's not even mad at Eleanor for thinking he killed like his own uncle and sending him to prison and stuff. Also, who bailed him out? And why did they leave him out if he's the prime suspect? Nobody else is the suspect. He is the prime suspect and everything. Unless they gave the audio to like the police, but they did that off screen. Why did we see that on screen, you know? And so like then all of a sudden he shows up at a party with a sword. He is number one suspect in the murder and he's showing up with a sword. Why does he have a sword? And then, oh, we know why he has a sword. Because he's getting his heroic moment by beating up the tracksuit mafia with a sword. And you hear slash mark, so somebody's getting slashed up in there. And so he would have been the perfect villain for Kate because she knows fencing. He knows fencing. And, you know, and so like, then when it's all over with, he's like cleaning his sword, talking to that one lady, and she's telling him something, and she's being serious with him. I can't remember what she was talking about because why? I completely forgot because Jack has a stupid throwaway comedic line that ruined that entire scene. This is not Buffy. These writers are not Josh Whedon. Stop trying to write like him. All right. And it's like enough with the humor crap. So he was a wasted character, not even a villain, just a character. Okay, one thing I was so sick and tired of was like the nerdy people, the Renaissance people. Somebody told me they're cops and like firefighters and stuff like that. They don't act like it. They really don't act like it. You think they would have been more equipped to take on the tracksuit mafia than what they did. And so they just took up too much screen time, in my opinion. They was too humorous. They could have been dropped from the show and I would have been happy. Now, I love Kate's suit. Kate's suit is awesome. Kate has two different suits from the comics. They use her one that she's most known with when she first showed up, and the Hawkeye comic book. So that's comic book accurate. That's awesome. She has another one. I'm glad she didn't wear the other one. That would be kind of. She looks too much like the Huntress in that one, and I don't appreciate that. But this is what I don't understand. First things first. Clint's suit looks terrible on this. I know it's from the comic. I know it's accurate. I don't care. It just doesn't look right. He doesn't look right. Jeremy does not look right wearing all that bright purple. Second, the dude is not, he doesn't look the same way he did in the Avengers movie. He's getting up there in age. He's gaining a little weight. I had no problem with big people, but he's not, he doesn't look right in spandex, period. You know what I'm saying? He just doesn't look right in spandex and all that purple. Now, the people who made his suit was the Renaissance people, basically cosplaying people. Kate had them do it because she wanted something that was like durable and tough and like stretchy and stuff. I'm thinking to myself, since when does these cosplay people start making indestructible like suits and everything that can withstand bullets and explosions and all this other crap? Wouldn't he just be all like, hey, Pepper, like, how you doing? Or, hey, Rhodey, I need a new suit. And I needed to have some of that Stark technology. He borrowed other Stark technology in his arrows. And he used PIM particles. So he still talks to the Avengers. And he still knows the Hulk. And the Hulk could have built him something. So why didn't he ask one of his, like, friends who actually makes super suits to make him a super suit and Kate one instead of having cosplay? Like, seriously, dude. Like, seriously. Anything can go through those outfits and stuff. I felt Yelena should have been in, like, the third season or something like that, or her own show. And then she could have went after Clint. Because the stuff that with her was interesting because she blamed him for Natasha's death. And so she's been wanting to kill him for years. And then all of a sudden, all because of a little whistle and everything, a little song he played for her, that made her change her mind. 'Cause I guess it's some type of like code or something like that. I haven't seen that Black Widow movie yet. I really need to. Especially while I still have Disney Plus. Because I made a mistake a long time ago. Because I still haven't seen all the Star Wars movies, the new ones yet. And I had Disney Plus a long time ago. Then I canceled it. But then I didn't have a chance to watch it. So I'm like, ah, crap. So then many years later, I got it again. And I got it mainly for this show and stuff. Also, I got it because it was supposed to be on sale, but they're charging me full price. I don't know what the heck is up with that. So I felt like she just didn't need to be in this show. Like, it was nice to see her bond with Kate. Anybody could bond with Kate. Even one of the tracksuit mafia dudes bonded with Kate. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how good of an actress Haley Steinfeld is, you know? And so, like, I just felt like Yelena was completely misplaced in this show. Like, she should have went after Clint in either her own show or another season or something. I get why she wanted to kill him, so that was kind of like, you know, that was a good storyline. But then it didn't pay off towards the end because all he had to do was whistle a little song, give her a little mushy talk, and then she completely forgives him. And not only she forgives him, but she believes him too. And so she didn't believe Kate, and Kate's all like, hey, he's not evil, blah, 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 stuff like that. And, you know, and it's just like, maybe I'll understand more if I like watch the movie and stuff. Before I get into like humor and stuff like that, because I don't got much to talk about that, let's get into the Kingpin. It was so cool to see this dude again. And having him be in the show didn't feel out of place, like the whole Yelena thing, because, you know, the mob is literally after Kate and after Clint, and plus the mom works for the mob. So him being in there was like cool and everything. Plus he's, you know, he's in the MCU now, so that's like totally great. But the question is this the Netflix Kingpin, or is this just the MCU version of it? Because he acts exactly the same as he did in the Netflix one. However, one thing about the Netflix thing is, with that, in season one, it showed him pretty much like becoming more and more of the Kingpin, but he wasn't quite like adequate with the whole rules of like criminal behavior and stuff. So then in the second season, when he went to jail, he started to learn more about the criminal underground and the underbelly of like the criminal empire and stuff. And then the third season, he decided he was going to take it over, both the crime and the city and stuff like that, by being like the mayor. And so in season one, he was already a bad guy and he was doing bad things. And he was the Kingpin, but he wasn't the criminal mastermind that he is now. So the question is, with this whole Echo thing now, did he meet her prior to season one of Daredevil? Because he would have had to because of her age and stuff like that. And it makes kind of sense because, like I said before, he was bad and stuff. But here's the thing. If he is the Netflix Kingpin, do you remember what happened in one of the coolest scenes ever in season 3? Daredevil whooped his behind and told him plain and simple, if you tell anybody my secret, if you come after Foggy, if you come after Karen, or if you harm any person, I will go after Vanessa. Like, he will straight up go after her, and he will expose her for the people that she killed and the people that he killed and stuff. And that made him surrender. Now, of course, he wasn't going to surrender for long, but as now we can see, he is still harming people. So how come Daredevil isn't coming in to whoop his behind? You know? And I did hear a rumor that Charlie and the whole Daredevil thing, they might be getting another season on Disney Plus. Which now I'm a little worried because that'll probably only be 6 episodes and everything. But if it is, then hey, I'm all for that. I don't want to touch down on humor too much, but I just think the MCU, because I do plan on doing another video about the MCU again, but it's just the humor in all of this was just kind of unnecessary. Like the little cousin boy of Jack, he's going at it with Jack, and Jack's all like, you peed in this one building. and that's it. Made him shut up, and it's kind of like, why? This is like toilet humor. This is like baby talk, and I'm just like, I'm not for that crap. Also, there's a little. I thought for sure that little boy would be working for Kingpin too, but he wasn't. But the thing is, this show had way too much humor from pretty much so many different characters. The only characters I wanted to see have humor was Jeremy and Haley and stuff, and everybody, and maybe some of the tracksuit people, and that's about it. I didn't need to see Yelena having all this humor and stuff. That just threw me out because I don't take her that seriously now, because of it. Also, what they had Kingpin wear, that was just more humor right there, and it's just like it's unnecessary. And then Jack, he was kind of comedic and everything. It's just there was way too much comedy in it. It was kind of weird seeing Kingpin be able to take like arrows in the chest and a face-on explosion. But you know, he is pretty like tough in the comics. You know, he's big, but his body mass is pretty much all muscle. And so it was a nice comic book reference that I liked of Echo shooting him, because that's what she did in the comic books and everything. But he survived that shot until he healed up and everything. All in all, I think it's a really good show. I just don't think it's a great show. A lot of these Disney Channel, Disney, no, not Disney, but Disney Plus, Marvel shows haven't really been like all that great for me. Sometimes they are, and then they kind of like get lackluster towards the middle, and then sometimes they don't. One thing that's kind of bugging me about this is that I don't think nobody has actually died in these Disney Plus like MCU shows. Like, have you noticed that? I haven't seen What If or Loki yet, but nobody really dies that's like a villain and stuff. And if they do die, they died before the show was even created and stuff. And it's like all of the villains are still like alive and kicking. And I don't understand that. Or except for, of course, Kazi and everything. But I mean, like even in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they saved that like head terrorist girl, and it's just like I don't like a lot of people still rub the wrong way about that. And so nobody has any like consequences of death in these shows. They just have consequences, not consequences in their actions and everything. So I would like to see them. I would love to see these shows get a little bit more like they are dark in some aspects and they are gritty. But then when they do get to the dark and gritty stuff, it's all like, oh no, this is because this misdirection and this is humorous and this villain is really humorous and everything. And it's kind of like I need them to be a little bit more hard hitting in these shows. So I can take them seriously and stuff, and I'm not taking the MCU serious no more. I'm still a Marvel fan, but it's kind of like even though the DC movies are hit and miss, I'd rather watch a DC movie than watch an MC movie right now. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.